Hello and welcome to Lightweight Workshop. Today's video is primarily for new users who are waiting for ordered AMARU. However, it will certainly be of interest to existing operators who want to refresh their initial training and check if they are not doing something wrong. A little tip to start with. The video is divided into chapters. If you are interested in a particular section, you can skip to it in the video description below. First, let's take a look at the different parts of the AMARU freeze dryer. Of course, you will also find the description of the parts in the user manual. First, the front part. Here you will find touch control unit and the product chamber. Inside the chamber, we then find the power cable for a shelving system, a pair of eye stoppers, the shelving system itself, and on the collar of the chamber its door seal. Lastly, a fabric seal for additional insulation of the chamber. On the left side of the AMARU there is only port used for automatic vacuum release after the lyophilization process. On the right side, we find the door and behind it space for the vacuum pump. We will look at this in more detail. Here we have the vacuum pump itself fitted with an oil mist separator and bottle for catching the oil during the process. The vacuum hose leading from the freeze dryer chamber is then attached to the inlet of the vacuum pump on the left side by the clamp. At the top of the pump there is a port for pouring oil, and at the bottom there is a valve for draining out worn oil. To the left of the vacuum pump there is a 230 volt socket where the vacuum pump power cord is connected, and at the top there is a backup vacuum release valve. This is designed to release vacuum in the event of the power failure. The last thing we have left is the backside, where we find the manufacturing label, the socket for connecting the power cord of the freeze dryer and the main switch. The startup is not complicated at all. The first thing to do is to place the AMARU on the sturdy table with a load capacity of at least 200 kg or use one of the offered stands. With the machine in place, it's time to connect the vacuum pump. First, connect the oil mist eliminator. And power cable. Then move the entire vacuum pump to the AMARU, where connect the vacuum hose with the same clamp as the oil mist eliminator. Now just plug the vacuum pump into the internal socket and then connect the AMARU power cable to the wall outlet. Before the first drying, we recommend to check the shelving system with a spirit level and adjust the feed if necessary. Otherwise, liquid products may take considerably longer to dry than necessary. When everything is ready, turn on the AMARU using the main switch at the rear. After booting up the control unit, we get to the home screen, which can be divided into three parts. In the left part there is a recipes, post-drying and pre-freeze buttons. In the middle section the cooling time can be entered and below that the drying time. In the right part there is a start button to start the process and gear icon which serves as a setting button. The times in the middle of the screen are actually the entire setup for the AMARU lyophilization process. By touching it, you can enter a value separately for hours and minutes. After that, all you have to do is to start the process with the start button or the post-drying button if it is previously poorly dried product. The entire drying and post-drying process is described in a separate video. You will find the link to it in the description below this video. We also have a separate video for recipe setting. You can find the link again in the description below this video. The pre-freeze button is used to pre-freeze the chamber and shelf system. This function should be activated when you go to prepare a load or when you use an external freezer to freeze down the product. It takes about 1 hour for a chamber and empty shelving system to completely freeze down to required temperature. Press the gear icon to go to the settings screen. Again, we will present the setup screen in 3 parts. The screensaver button takes us to the screen where we can adjust the brightness of the display or set a password to lock the screen. This is useful to prevent access by an unwanted person who does not know the code you have set. This process is described in more detail in the user manual. The test button leads us to the so-called self-test screen for cooling and the vacuum, to essential function of the freeze dryer. We also have a separate videos for performing both tests. You will find a link to them again in the video description. Last in this section is the information button, which takes us to the screen containing the serial number and the hours counter of the vacuum pump and cooling unit. In the middle of the screen we have from top language selection button, oil button when you can find the oil change counter, and lastly the pressure unit switching. The choice is Torr or Pascal. There is a back button on the right side of the screen to return to previous screen. Below that is the functions button, which takes us to the screen of the same name with the option to evacuate the chamber or start defrosting. This screen will automatically appear when the drying process is terminated. The last button on the settings screen is to turn the audible signal on or off. And that's it from the basic training. As I mentioned during the video, we have a few more videos to supplement this. Out of all of them, I would then recommend watching the tutorial how to perform the first lyophilization process, which you can access by clicking here. Thank you for your attention and I look forward to the next video.